Hi everybody, welcome back to Small Caliber Arms Review. Today we're going to take a look at rimfire reliability and the reason why people suggest not using rimfire ammo for personal protection. And there are some issues with it. The quality control is not quite what it should be anyways. I've got a little pile of 22 rounds here that have been sitting on my bench for a long time, and most of them have had hits on the primers, but they didn't go off. And if you remember when I did I think it was the Savage A22 video, I took a shot and the round didn't go off, so I ejected it, put it back in later on, took another shot, and it still didn't go off. So I've got that round right here and I've investigated it. I'm going to show you what went on with that round. Okay, so here's the round, and I went ahead and pulled the bullet out of it, and you can see on the bottom of it there are two distinct hits on it, one right there and one right there. And it's when I fired it the first time, and then I took it out, tried it again, rotated it a little bit, and it still didn't go off. Now what I've done is I've put a little ink mark on there where each one of those are on the side, and we're going to take the borescope and we're going to put it down inside there, and we're going to check it out and see what happened. I'll show you where the alignment marks are. Okay, so here's the round, and you can see I've got a little mark right on there, and that is right where one of the hits was on the primer there. It's pretty close to it. I had a pretty wide marker. Anyways, let's go up the side, and then we'll go down inside the barrel there, and we will see or inside the round, and we'll see just what happened. And you can see the primer down inside there. There's a big chunk of it missing. And then that little point down there at the bottom is where another one of the marks are. See if I can get that pretty much lined up. There's where the mark is. And then if we go up the side and go right down inside of it, you'll see that's just where the other part of the primer was missing. So what are the odds of hitting it in both the spots where the primer was really weak? It's pretty slim, but you can see it's not a real good coating of the primer inside there. So I've got some of these other rounds here, and you'll see this one right here has a really good hit on it. If I can get the glare to go away. And it's got two hits on it and two different firing pins. So I tried it in two different firearms and it still didn't go off. Yes, it is a Winchester, so some of you may say, well, there's your biggest problem right there. And then this one here is the same thing. It's got a really good hit on the rim there and still did not go off. Now these other two rounds I've got here, this is kind of an odd hit for the firing pin. I think this was from my Stevens model 1915 favorite, and those hits just aren't close to the rim. Same thing on this other round here. I only tried it twice in there, so there's a problem with the firearm itself on these two rounds. But the other rounds, with the really good hits on the primer there, there's no reason that shouldn't have gone off unless the priming compound in it is just like this one right here. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll take this round right here, and we're going to go ahead and pull the bullet on this thing and dump the powder out of it and see what happened with it. Now when you get a bad round like this, you don't want to just throw it in the trash. That is not safe whatsoever. So what we are going to do, like I said, is we're going to go ahead and pull the bullet out of it. And do this at your own risk if you decide to do it. If one of these rounds was to go off like this, there is no chamber that it's in, so it's not going to fire like it would a regular bullet out of a barrel. So it would be a lot weaker. Of course, it's going to scare you pretty bad, that's for sure. And it's really not unsafe to do this, but you definitely don't want to hit the primer while you're doing it. But you can pull the bullet out and just wiggle them back and forth a little bit, get a good grip on it with some pliers. If anything happened, the case would go flying and the bullet would stay right there in your pliers. And we'll go ahead and dump the powder out of it. And you can see I've got a lot of old powder in here that's just a mix of a lot of different rounds and stuff, and this will be disposed of properly. Okay, so I've got the round pulled out of there. You can see where it was hit right there, and we'll go ahead and look down inside of it and see what happened. And as we look inside there, we can see it looks like there is zero priming compound in there. There's a little flake of gunpowder right in there. But yeah, no priming compound inside this case. So I really didn't have to worry about that one going off in my pliers anyways. So let's go ahead and pull the other one out and see what happened with it. Okay, here we go again. We got one with a really good hit on there. This is a Remington. The other one was a Winchester. Yes, that was a Winchester. This one is a Remington. And same thing, we're gonna go ahead and pull the bullet on this one, get a good grip on it, just twist it side to side a little bit and it'll pull right out of there. It'll dump the powder out. And we'll take the borescope and put it right back down in there. Again, really good hit on the primer right there on the case. And look down inside of it, and we can see same thing. No primer in there, a couple little flakes of gunpowder stuck underneath the rim, but no powder, or no primer. So that's one of the things you want to do or don't want to do with one of the reasons you don't want to use rimfire as personal protection, because sometimes they're just the quality control, it's tough when they're making these things by the millions, and you know, to get a good quality control, of course we want to make sure that every one we buy is not a bad round, but sometimes it just happens that way. Okay, so there's a good example of why you do not want to use rimfire ammo for personal protection, because it can be unreliable. Now, maybe some of the rounds like the Winchester Silver Tips or the Federal, what are they, the Federal Punch, they may have a little higher quality control standards just because they are specifically designed for personal protection. But one of the things about centerfire ammo is these little primers right here, and I'll give you a really good close-up on one of these, and you'll be able to see the anvil in there. They're actually a two-piece primer, and you can see that little tri-piece right there. There's a little dust down there. It's been sitting up there on the shelf for a long time, but there's a cup there. And then in that cup is the primer, the priming compound, and then that little three-legged, three-spoked piece right there is the anvil. And they put those in there when they're wet, and they're set a certain distance above that cup. So when that firing pin hits it right there in the center, it pinches that compound right there between the anvil and the cup, and that gives you your better quality ignition source for your round. So that's one of the reasons why they always suggest let's use center fire for personal protection and not rim fire. Here's another one. This is a different brand. See if I can get it in focus here a little bit, but it's the same thing. Dust and priming compound down inside that pocket with the little anvil that's kind of pressed down inside there. And those three components right there are a reliable source of ignition for your rounds. So it's up to you if you want to use rimfire for personal protection. More times than not, they're going to go off. These rounds that I've got sitting right here have been on my desk for a long time, and some of them, not every one of them, has been fired. I don't remember, maybe I emptied a partial magazine out and just threw them in the pile here. But a lot of times what I do with them is I will take them and keep them. You don't just throw them in the trash. I will take them, keep them, put them in a different firearm and see if they'll fire, because sometimes that's the issue. Sometimes it just doesn't hit in the right spot. Sometimes it's just a bad round, like I showed you with the ones I pulled apart right here on camera. And I take that gunpowder and I dump it in a safe place. A lot of times, you probably shouldn't do this. I know you shouldn't do this. But anyways, I will take a pin once I've pulled that case and I will scratch in there and set that compound off. It just makes a little pop. It'll smoke up your fingers just a tiny bit. And I throw it in a bucket of my spent rimfire brass, and one of these days I'm going to melt them all down and make something out of it. But you definitely don't want to just throw them in the trash or throw them out on the ground or whatever. Maybe you'll hit it with the lawnmower, and maybe you will get lucky and set one off and the bullet or the case or something will go flying and could cause some problems. One of the things I have seen, the only thing I've ever seen about disposing of spent ammo is I've seen people take them and put them in a bucket of water and just leave them there for however long. A lot of times rounds are sealed so water can't get in there. It keeps them from going bad over time. But really that's the only thing I've ever seen on disposing of bad ammo, at least the small stuff. When you get into bigger stuff, you know, something like this right here, this is a deactivated round. So there were, I don't know if this was an explosive, incendiary, whatever round it was, but it has been deactivated. The bullet, the shell itself has been deactivated. It's got a hole drilled in the side of it there. It does not have a primer in it either. Same thing with, I got a 50 BMG here that's the same thing. It is a inert round. It has a spent primer in it, and this is one, just a novelty round you can buy at a gun show for $2 or $3 or whatever. You can buy a live round for about the same price too. But then you have that to worry about. But that's my look at rimfire ammo and why it sometimes is unreliable. Sometimes you may just have a bad batch. I've gone through 500 round boxes of Remington Thunderbolts without a single one going bad. I've gone through a 100 round box of Winchester Super X and had several of them go bad. Anyways, thanks for watching Small Caliber Arms Review. If you could, reach up here and hit this button and check out some of my other videos, and hit this button down here to subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for watching Rimfire Reliability.